The Indiana Fever just dropped a bomb that nobody saw coming. While teams like the Pacers literally have 8 scouts on their payroll, the Fever, the team with the most marketable star in women's basketball, has exactly 0, not 1. Not even an intern with a clipboard. And this shocking revelation is just the tip of the iceberg that could send Caitlin Clark packing to a team that actually knows what they're doing. But before we dive into this organizational disaster, if you're enjoying what we're covering here about the wild world of the WNBA, make sure to hit that subscribe button because we're bringing you the inside stories that mainstream media won't touch. Picture this. It's August 2025, and while other WNBA teams are scouting talent across Europe, Australia, and every college program worth mentioning, the Indiana Fever's front office is literally Googling players. I'm not making this up. Stephanie White herself admitted they scout based on what they hear from friends and watch on YouTube clips. This is like trying to build a championship team using LinkedIn recommendations and TikTok highlights. And the consequences? Oh, they're devastating. With Caitlin Clark sidelined for what's now her 11th straight game with a groin injury, that's 19 games missed this season, folks. The Fever decided their solution was to sign Kira Lambert. Who's Kira Lambert, you ask? Great question. She's been playing in the Greek League, where games are played in empty arenas, and the competition level is somewhere between a Division III college team and your local YMCA pickup game. When reporters asked Lambert how she prepared to join the Fever, they literally gave her a softball question. Did you watch the team sets? Her answer? I watch a lot of the WNBA and it's the best league in the world. That's it. That's like asking someone how they prepared for a job interview at NASA and they respond, I really like space. Here's where it gets even crazier. The Fever are currently running their offense with Kelsey Mitchell playing point guard. Mitchell's an incredible shooting guard, don't get me wrong. But asking her to run point is like asking a Formula One driver to suddenly compete in NASCAR. Sure, they're both racing, but it's a completely different skill set. Sophie Cunningham, their newest addition from Phoenix, has also been thrown into the point guard role despite being a natural wing player her entire career. But wait, there's more dysfunction to unpack. Sydney Colson, torn ACL, done for the season. Ari McDonald, broken foot, see you next year. The Fever signed Odyssey Sims on an emergency hardship contract, and in her debut, she went scoreless with a -14 rating in 13 minutes. This is what happens when you don't have scouts. You're literally throwing darts blindfolded and hoping something sticks. The most infuriating part? The Fever keep calling themselves the premier franchise in the WNBA. They built a $78 million practice facility, the largest in the league. They have the highest attendance numbers. They won the Commissioner's Cup this year, without Caitlin, mind you, collecting that sweet $500,000 prize. But they can't hire a single scout? Let me put this in perspective for you. The Minnesota Lynx's Cheryl Reeve was all over Europe during the offseason, personally scouting players. The Liberty have a designated scouting coordinator. Even teams with smaller budgets have at least someone whose job description includes the word scout. But the Fever, they're out here making roster decisions based on vibes and Instagram follower counts. The real kicker came when they signed players like Bree Hall, not because of her basketball skills, but because she's Aaliyah Boston's friend from South Carolina. They drafted Yvonne Ejim because she broke some records at Gonzaga, which, let's be real, isn't exactly the highest level of competition. It's like drafting someone to the NFL because they dominated in Canadian football. And here's the thing that should terrify every Fever fan. Caitlin Clark cares about winning more than anything else. People keep saying, oh, she'll never leave Indiana. She loves the Midwest. Yeah, she loved Iowa too, but you know why she stayed there? Because Iowa had a competent coaching staff, teammates she respected, and an organization that actually knew what it was doing. The Fever? They're proving every day that they're stuck in the stone age of women's basketball. The writing's on the wall, and it's written in giant, flashing neon letters. When your star player has missed more games than she's played, when you're signing players from leagues nobody's heard of, when your entire point guard rotation is either injured or playing out of position, that's not bad luck, that's bad management. What makes this even more embarrassing is that this is happening in 2025, not 1995. The WNBA has evolved. Teams are investing in analytics departments, international scouting networks, and player development programs. The Fever? They're still operating like it's the old WNBA, where you could get by with a couple of phone calls and hoping for the best. The team's recent performance tells the whole story. They turned the ball over 17 times against Dallas, giving up 27 points off those turnovers. Against teams with actual scouting departments, they look lost. Stephanie White keeps talking about resilience and grit, but you can't resilience your way out of fundamental organizational incompetence. Here's a stat that'll blow your mind. The Fever are 18-14 this season, which sounds decent until you realize they're 10-9 without Caitlin Clark. That means they're only 8-5 with their superstar. Why? Because they have no coherent roster construction, no strategic planning, and apparently no desire to join the modern era of professional basketball. The solution seems obvious. Hire some scouts. It's not rocket science. Every other professional sports organization on the planet has figured this out, but the Fever seem content to keep doing things the way they've always done them, which is exactly why they went 8 years without making the playoffs before last season. And let's talk about those recent roster moves for a second. They let Alyssa Smith go to Dallas. Sure, she was inconsistent, but at least she was a known quantity. They bought out Katie Lou Samuelson's contract to save money. They watched Erica Wheeler walk to Seattle. These aren't the moves of a franchise trying to build around a generational talent. These are the moves of a franchise that's completely lost at sea without a compass. The irony is almost painful. The Fever have the most watched player in WNBA history. Caitlin Clark games average over 1 million viewers. When she doesn't play, ratings drop by more than 50%. Ticket prices plummet. The entire league suffers. You'd think with that kind of drawing power, the organization would do everything possible to build a competent team around her. Instead, they're out here making decisions that would get you laughed out of a fantasy basketball league. What's even more concerning is the message this sends to other potential free agents. If you're a top-tier player looking at your options, why would you choose Indiana? They've shown they won't invest in basic infrastructure like scouting. They make roster decisions based on personal relationships rather than basketball merit. They're content to waste the prime years of one of the most talented players the sport has ever seen. Stephanie White, to her credit, seems to understand the problem. She's been diplomatic in her public comments, but you can read between the lines. When she says things like, "We scout based on what we hear," that's coach speak for "we have no idea what we're doing." She's trying to make chicken salad out of chicken. Well, you know, the most frustrating part is that this is all so preventable. Hiring scouts isn't expensive in the grand scheme of professional sports. We're not talking about signing a max contract player or building a new arena. We're talking about hiring a few people whose job is to watch basketball and evaluate talent. High school teams have scouts. Amateur leagues have scouts. But the Indiana Fever? Nah, they'll just wing it. And now, with the season winding down and the playoffs approaching, the Fever are limping along with a makeshift roster held together by duct tape and prayers. They're asking players to play out of position, signing emergency replacements who aren't ready for WNBA competition, and hoping somehow it all works out. Spoiler alert, it won't. The real tragedy here is what this means for Caitlin Clark's career. She's already 23 years old. These are supposed to be her prime years. The time when she's establishing herself as not just a great player, but a champion. Instead, she's watching from the bench as her team stumbles through games with a roster that looks like it was assembled by throwing darts at a board of available players. You want to know the difference between a serious franchise and a pretender? A serious franchise would have had contingency plans the moment Clark went down with her first injury. They would have been on the phone with agents, reviewing scouting reports, making strategic moves to stay competitive. The Fever? They grabbed whoever was available and crossed their fingers. This isn't just about basketball anymore. This is about organizational malpractice. When you have a player who single-handedly transformed your franchise from an afterthought to must-see TV, you owe it to her, to the fans, and to the sport itself to put a competent team around her. The Fever have failed spectacularly in that regard. And before anyone says, well, they won the Commissioner's Cup without her, let me remind you that one lucky tournament run doesn't erase systemic organizational failures. It's like saying the Titanic was a successful voyage because the band kept playing. Sure, they had a moment of glory, but the ship is still sinking. The clock is ticking on Caitlin Clark's patience, and honestly, who could blame her if she decided to take her talents elsewhere? There are franchises in this league that actually know what they're doing. Teams that invest in infrastructure, that scout properly, that make strategic roster decisions based on basketball merit rather than personal connections. If the Fever don't wake up and join the 21st century soon, they're going to lose more than just games. They're going to lose the player who saved their franchise And when that happens, they'll have nobody to blame but themselves. So here's the bottom line. And Fever fans, you need to hear this. Your team is failing Caitlin Clark. They're failing Sophie Cunningham. They're failing Aaliyah Boston. They're failing every player who puts on that jersey expecting to compete at the highest level. And until they make fundamental changes to how they operate, until they invest in basic things like scouting, they're going to keep failing. The question isn't whether changes need to be made, it's whether the Fever organization has the courage to admit their mistakes and fix them before it's too late. Based on what we've seen so far, I wouldn't hold my breath. If you think the Fever need to get their act together before they lose Caitlin Clark forever, smash that like button and let me know in the comments what changes you think need to happen first. And don't forget to subscribe, because we're going to keep exposing the truth about what's really happening in the WNBA, whether the league likes it or not. Until next time, this is your source for the real stories behind women's basketball.